let's talk about roofs.
Yes, well, yes, we're segueing there. So let's start talking about home inspections, and then we'll get to the roof, how the roof impacts a potential home sale. So,
Yeah.
home inspections, I don't know if that's a dirty word in the real estate industry.
No.
No? What do you, when you're prepping a buyer or a seller for a home inspection, what are you saying to them, and what are you looking for in a home inspector?
With a home inspector, what we're looking for is somebody who's thorough and calm and good at educating.
Okay.
A home inspection is not just about finding things wrong with the house. It's about educating that new homeowner about their house. If you don't know where your water shutoff is, you might be in trouble one day.
True.
So when you go on your home inspection, pay attention and learn about your house. Find out when you're supposed to change your filters on your air conditioning, for example. Whatever it is, that home inspector should be educating you on those things. Super important. The other thing is that home inspections are only for certain things. And those things fall under the categories of safety, structural, mechanical, and environmental.
Okay.
That's all a home inspection is for. It's not for something cosmetic. Peeling wallpaper doesn't count. It's not for what we call upgrades, where you're saying, you know what, that thing really needs to be replaced with something better. No, that's going to be your job. That's why the house was this much money instead of this much money. And it's not for something we call the age of a system, which really relates a lot. Those last two things relate a great deal to what you do for a living.
Roofing.
And roofing, right. So the roof is a system. The age of a system is not an inspection issue.
Okay.
So, and some of the things with a roof, sometimes they might not be in perfect shape, but if they're not leaking, then they're doing their job, right? I mean, we always say that water is the #1 enemy of a home. It's
Yes.
absolutely true. So there are two places you need to make sure your house is really watertight, and that's coming in the basement and your roof. These are two of the most important places to think about inspections and taking care of your house, because water is bad. And in the environment, that we're in right now, we're having more and more storms and everything, so
Yes.
it's really become important. So we like to educate a buyer and the seller as well on what inspections are for, so that when you're at your inspection, you're learning about it. If we know the house has a roof that's old, okay, but is it doing its job still? And did you pay for a house with a new roof, or did you know you were paying for a house with an old roof? And that's important. So, it's something we go through that with people. And lately, of course, with inspections, a lot of people, in order to win a bid, they've been waiving part of the inspections. But always, 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 it's for safety, structural, environmental, and mechanical. We've added the word mechanical recently. Mechanical has really always been part of structural. So when we say structural, we mean like if there's a leaking pipe, that's part of the structure of a home.
Right.
Just like if there's a leaking roof, that's part of the structure of a home, right? So we now are reminding people by actually saying mechanical, so that there's no confusion between attorneys later on.
Yes, yes. Do you notice when the home inspection is happening, is that when maybe the buyer or seller is a little more tense than they? Yeah.
So I call it a hurdle.
Hurdle.
We have hurdles. The first hurdle is a small one. That's getting through attorney review and under contract. That's usually not that big a deal. The next one is certainly inspections. And the next one besides that is getting a mortgage commitment, which is an appraisal and a mortgage commitment. So those are, to me, the hurdles that we go through during that whole process from contract to close. So inspections can be very stressful. They shouldn't be, though. It should be fair. And
Yes.
if you're a fair buyer and a fair seller, it's not adversarial, it's just fair. And so, if somebody says, let's say the hot water heater is at the end of its useful life, so it's 10 or 12 years old, that buyer can't say, well, I want the seller to put a new one in. That would be an upgrade. That's just the age of the system.
Okay.
hot water heaters don't last as long as roofs do, right?
Yeah.
So, to that buyer, I might say, well, look, you know that this is 12 years old already, so you should be budgeting in your mind at least to replace that sooner than later, so you don't have it leaking and have a catastrophe, right? So it's the same thing with a roof. Just because a roof is X number of years old doesn't mean it needs to be replaced. But it's an important element to the safety and longevity of your home.
Totally.
Do you do a lot of second layers anymore?
No,
Right?
Mattsson Roofing does not do
Ever?
what Nena's referring to. We call it a re-roof internally, but that's if you have a roof with one layer of shingles on it, you can put another layer of shingles on top.
Shouldn't.
And yeah, call it a day. And technically you're not in violation of building code
Right.
because building code allows for 2 layers, but Mattsson Roofing does not do that because we think if there are existing problems with the roof, that initial
masking.
layer, it's going to masking and or compounding. Like if
Yeah.
there's a ventilation problem, it's going to make that worse.
Absolutely.
If the decking, the wood underneath the shingles is shot,
Yep.
and you start nailing into that again, that could lead to problems. I know it's common.
No, it's less common now.
Oh, really?
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to hear that you don't do it.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. Nobody should put a second layer on. And we find it less and less and less, which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
when I bought my house, it had 3 layers on it.
Yes.
And needless to say, when we had to replace the roof, we
It's
also
expensive.
had we had to take everything off.
Yes.
Everything had to be replaced. So yeah, it's really important to take that layer off and see the condition of the sheathing, and which is just, it's so important. So I'm glad you don't do it that way, because I didn't know if you did, and I know there are some roofers out there who still do, and they shouldn't.
Yeah, well, especially with the newer shingles, like a dimensional shingle, a laminated shingle, they're not even really meant to have a second layer on top of them because your roof can start,
Yeah.
you've got 2 dimensional shingles on top of the other, the roof can start looking really, really bumpy.
Yeah, bubbly.
The old shingles were flatter, but now if you put a dimensional on top of a dimensional, it's too many dimensions.
Yeah.
So that could lead to problems. We get a lot. The people that ask for second layers on houses are people that do not have a long-term interest in their home, and if they're going to be selling it soon. We don't,
Okay.
and we turn
I
them
still
away.
don't agree with them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not 90% of the time, maybe even more, it's not a good idea because if you're left holding the bag, what happens is with the second layer of the roof is you're putting on, if your house is 3,000 square feet, you're putting on another 3,000 square feet of shingles. So somebody, when you have to pay to take that off, you're paying for increased labor, bigger dumpster, you've probably damaged the decking past a certain point, so that needs to be replaced. So if you're the one holding the bag, it's not a good investment, even if it maybe masked a leaking problem for 5 years or so.
Yeah. Throwing good money after bad.
Exactly, yes. So when you're helping somebody buy or sell a house, when you pull up to the home and you look at the roof, what are some things you look for? What are some red flags? Anything with the roof. What are some things you have to cross off your list to know about somebody's roof on a house?
Well, sometimes it's quite easy to see if there's 2 layers.
Yes.
It doesn't look pretty. I don't mean because of the thing you were talking about, but just on the edges, how you can see
Yeah.
both of the layers, and that doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And then you are able to sell that buyer. That means when you have to re-roof it, all those extra expenses you were just talking about come into play. Usually we know the age of the roof. There's something called a seller's disclosure,
Yes.
which I have always insisted on my sellers filling out, and I've never had any pushback on it. It protects the seller as much as the buyer, and it's your opportunity to share what you know about your house. So if your roof is 25 years old, it's right on the seller's disclosure. It's not like you've said it was 5 years old or you've just left it in the dark. You're saying it's 25 years old. So then I'm able to say to this buyer, just so you know, it's already got an old roof. So again, just like the hot water heater example, start budgeting for that.
Yeah.
When I bought my house, I opened a roof account. I had a roof savings account.
Wow.
Yeah, I take homeowners
That makes me happy.
very seriously.
Yeah.
Well, we knew it was going to have to be replaced. And so, so yeah, I think that it's important to fill out. Well, the nice thing is that as of this month, seller's disclosures are required by law.
Interesting.
And I'm so happy about that because it's nonsense to not have one filled out. Starting a few months ago, they added a page about flooding, and that page was required. So there were some sellers that were just filling out that page, and I'm thinking, what are you hiding? Why aren't you filling out that seller's disclosure? So now they have to fill out the whole thing. If it's an estate and the adult child doesn't know the answer, they just say it's an estate and you sign as the estate agent and you don't fill it out. That's a different situation. But if you've lived in the house, then you know the answers to an awful lot of it. And you can say unknown to an awful lot of the questions, but the age of your roof, pretty much you know. And I don't know what year it was, you probably do, that they changed the law in New Jersey where you no longer need a permit.
2017. Yeah, Governor Murphy. Yep.
Bums me out. The reason I liked it is because, first of all, I think it keeps roofers honest.
Totally.
I know when you're doing my roof and any of my clients' roofs, I know that it's done right. But I don't know that about every roofer out there. The other thing is that you can pull the permit card and you can see what year the roof was put on. So if the homeowner says, I know I replaced it sometime in, the aughts, well, I just go to town hall and I can find out, oh yeah, it was 2008.
Yes.
And then we know the exact year. So now, as of 2017, they're being done without permits. So unless that homeowner kept the paperwork, we don't know for sure what year it is.
Something we do to not get around that, but provide credibility and proof that we're going to do a good job to a customer that's using us for a roof replacement. We have something called a premium reduction report. It's just a report. We have a template we have put together. We fill in information about the project we did, but it says Mattsson Roofing followed building code for installing drip edge. Mattsson Roofing followed building code for installing ice and water shield. So any of the building code items relating to a roof, we check the box and say, yes, we did that. And then the homeowners, A, they have that proof. B, they can send it to their homeowner's insurance policy. And typically, not always, but typically, if your homeowner's insurance knows that we installed everything according to code, they will lower
your premium.
Yeah, not a lot,
Not
but
always.
$50, $100.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, it's a nice little cherry on top at the end of the project where you can get some savings because you spent the money and you spent the time to put a good roof on your house. But yes, I totally agree that getting rid of building codes in 2017, in a way we like it, we're biased because it's not always easy dealing with the various building inspectors.
Municipalities, yeah.
Yeah, some of them are very strong-willed. And they have their opinions, but we generally love them. But
Yes,
taking
we
that,
love building inspectors.
yes, we'll say that. But it's been advantageous for some roofing companies because it's one less headache, one less fee they have to deal with. But for the homeowner, you don't have that government official saying, no, you didn't do this right. No, you didn't. You don't have a government official checking your work. And sometimes people sign contracts and they don't really know what they're getting into. Yeah, it can turn into a nightmare. And then technically, if you go back and look at the contract, that roofer did everything they said they were going to do. Maybe they didn't do it to code, but now there's not really a penalty or somebody checking.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. With the roof, we get a lot of people, whether it's a seller or a buyer, if they're going to buy a house, they'll have the roofer come out and do an independent inspection or in addition to the home inspection. And we'll get people, I guess we can say getting into credit wars, but according to what you said, if the roof doesn't have any problems, right, if it's not leaking.
If it's doing its job.
Then that technically the buyer does not have as much leverage to say, can you get the roof done? Interesting, I didn't know that.
And here's the thing, if my buyer is buying a house and it's got an older roof, and I don't know how to define that, so I'm not going to give it a year, but an older roof. And there's, some things about it that, couple of the shingles are a little crooked, things that come up, some nails are popping. Yeah, they can ask for those things, but should they? Should they instead ask for a credit towards doing it themselves and then hold on to that money and just use it towards replacing the roof? Again, instead of spending good money after bad, if it's doing its job and there are no leaks, instead of doing like a quick fix or patching and things like that, replace the roof. It's really a great investment in your home. And as a seller, having a new roof is sexy. It is. I mean, it is. I love selling houses.
Talking about that. But
well, you get him on your roof.
I'm just kidding.
No, it's like, it's really one of those top things that to check off to be like, wow, I won't have to think about a roof for what, 30 or more years?
Yeah.
It's awesome. So I always do a list of updates on the listings I sell, and I love it when I have the word new roof. And I always say new single layer roof because I want to make it clear that my seller did not cut that corner. So if I can say it's a single layer roof, I want to. It's very important.
Yes.
If you are selling your house and you got an old roof, it's a good investment. You will get a return on that investment. Will you get 100% of it back or 150% of it back? I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
But your house will sell a whole lot more easily, and you will not have any inspection issues with your roof,
Right.
which is a relaxing thing. So even if you're thinking, oh, in 5 years I'm going to sell my house, should I go ahead and do it? Yeah, do it. Don't be spending money doing little tiny repairs on your roof. Go ahead, put a new roof on, and then you're going to be able to say, oh, I have a 5-year-old roof. That's still very sexy.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not like a hot water heater that only lasts 10 years. So
One commonality or pattern that I've noticed is that if you, as a potential buyer of a home, if you almost push the seller into getting a new roof as part of like the purchase agreement or whatever, the credit, if you push the seller into getting a new roof, I have noticed that it's not necessarily in the seller's interest if they have 3 estimates, one's 20, one's 15, one's 10. Is it really in the seller's interest to opt for the 20 and even to opt for the 15? I'm sure that the buyer would have some things they'd want to see with the new roof. But I've noticed that anytime I'm in a house where the roof is leaking and I hear them say, yeah, we had the seller put on a new roof as part of the agreement, it's almost like they're not going to treat it with the same tender love and care that you will as somebody that's moving into the house and hopefully owning it for 10 to 20 years. So I agree with what you said, that if the seller is giving you anything relating to the roof, any type of credit, it is better almost to hold on to that and do the roof yourself.
Do it yourself and do it right.
Because then you know the roofer.
Yeah.
And the warranty is not always transferable from seller to buyer. Ours are.
Yep.
Yeah, but
like the one we have right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the seller might not always treat it with the same investment, tender love and care that the buyer would.
Yeah.
That's
true of a lot of things.
Yes.
Accredited closing is a really nice thing.
Yeah.
And then spending the money yourself once you own the house and doing it the way you really want it done with the right contractor. But again, unless that roof is leaking or has some really significant issues, you're not getting credits on the roof. Not these days.
Yeah. So, Nena, if you were buying a new house in Glen Rock, Ridgewood, and you yourself were buying the house, and you pulled up, what are some areas of the roof that we've already touched on, is it 1 layer, 2 layers? If you were able to get in the attic and maybe even get on the roof or fly a drone, what are some things you would be looking for that potential home buyers should know about a roof, or what information?
Flashings.
Yes.
No matter how nice the roof is, if the flashings aren't done right, it's going to leak.
Yes. A lot of people think a roof is just shingles and then maybe some like underlayment items, but if you have a complicated house that has like dormers, a lot of cuts, a lot of valleys, multiple chimneys, a lot of plumbing protrusions sticking out, and the flashing on those isn't done well, that's where you're going to have the leak.
Yeah.
It's rare to have a leak
in the middle of...
Yeah, across just like an expanse of shingles, whereas if that water
where
that's
that
trapped...
vent is.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yes, because the water has to hit that and then get around it, whether it's a dormer, a vent, like you said.
Chimneys.
Yes, so if the flashing on there isn't tight, isn't secure, isn't well done, that's where you're going to have the leak.
And it can also be attractive if
Yes.
it's done right.
Yes, yeah, like a nice copper flashing on a
they're
chimney.
so pretty when people do that.
Yes, yes. A lot of people are going to aluminum now, which is fine. Aluminum looks good, but there's something about copper that it just shines a little bit more when you put it on. Okay, so we have what to look for as a home buyer when looking at a home. We have the multiple layers on a roof, the flashings, anything else that you would kind of
Gutters and downspouts.
Yes.
Again, water's the #1 enemy of a home. So that's the roof's job. And it's great, but all that water's pouring off that gorgeous new roof, and it's got to go somewhere, and it's got to go away from the house. So usually it seems most people, when they replace their roof, replace their gutters at the same time.
Yes, that's something we stress because it's the roofing system and the gutter system work together to divert water off the roof and then away from the foundation,
Away from the
hopefully.
house. Yeah.
What we do is, and it's also difficult for us as a roofing company, if somebody chooses to keep their gutters when we're replacing a roof, it's a little bit of a nightmare because then we have to worry about protecting the gutters, not damaging them. The way the new roofing system sits in the gutters, it might be a little different, and that might impact the efficacy of the gutters.
Yeah.
So we lower our margins by double digits. If you're getting a new roof and you want to throw the gutters in there too, we lower the margins on the gutters by double digits because you're essentially doing us a favor by not having to worry about those gutters when we're doing the roof replacement, and it makes the job bigger too.
And the house looks so much nicer.
Yes, it's one thing if your old gutters are dirty, if they're damaged, and you put a new roof on, it's almost like the gutters stick out more.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like putting.
It's like painting one room and then the room next to
Yes.
it looks bad, and now
It
you're
makes
like,
that
now I
room
got to
look
paint
worse.
that room. Right.
Yeah, totally. So I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. And you mentioned water in the roof, water in the basement. I find that when people are having water problems in their house, it's probably because a downspout maybe got eaten by the landscapers
Yeah.
or something fell off where the water's not traveling away from the house. Now it's dumping right into the foundation. So that's another reason why we're always looking for, if we're doing the roof and doing the gutters, how can we improve the gutter system? How can we improve the water flow so that it's getting away from the foundation? Nobody wants water in their basements. All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. We've been talking with Nena Colligan of the Colligan Group at Keller Williams. It's been a great talk. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, knowledge, insight with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we hope your great summer continues into a great fall.
Thank you.
Yes.
You too.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody.